So I have a report open here, and it already has some data loaded into it. So I'm going to start the next step, which is building the visuals on my report canvas. Whenever you're looking at a report, there's a couple of different pieces. The first bit is the canvas that the visuals are drawn on, and then we have two panes. The first pane is called the visualization pane, and it contains all the visual options you have and the components you need to build your chart. The second pane is the field list, which lists out all the data that you have in your report. Whenever you want to build a visual, there's a couple of components you need for the visual to actually show. So let's start with this visual I pre-built. When I click on it, I can see that for a column chart, in the field well here, you'll see the different components. So it has an axis, a legend optionally, values, and a couple of other things. So in this chart, I put the manufacturer fields from my field well into the axis bucket so that manufacturers would show on the axis. And I put units in the values bucket so that the chart will show the number of units per manufacturer. And whenever I create a visual from scratch, I'll see different types of components depending on the visual. So I'm going to start a new visual, and I'm going to create a pie chart. So I'm going to go over to the visualizations pane, and I'm going to select the pie chart. And now, since I don't have any data in it, it's going to show me a placeholder to start with. And I can see in the field well all the possible components of the pie chart I can add. So I'm first going to start by adding revenue to the values, because that's what I'm going to want to show in this pie chart, the revenue. And it starts filling up with just all of the revenue. There's no slices yet because I haven't told it what to break down by. So now I'm going to drag category into the legend field. And what this will do is it will break down the pie chart into all the different categories. I can also create a visual just by dragging a field onto the canvas. So I'm going to start by dragging manufacturer. And by default, it will create a table visual, but then I can go in and I can change the visual type. So I'm going to start by changing this into a tree map. And you can see by default, it added the manufacturer field I had on my table to the group bucket, and I can drag that into a different field if that's not where I wanted it. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to add revenue to the values. And then now I can start seeing that data in the tree map. And tree maps are really good for seeing pieces of the whole. So I can see that Van Arsdale, in terms of revenue, is the biggest of my manufacturers. And I can just kind of see if the pieces go down, it gets smaller. And as I hover over the pieces, I can see a tooltip that gives me further information. So I can see when I'm hovering over this little piece that's small, I can see what the manufacturer's name is, Leo, and I can see the revenue of it as well. And this tooltip shows up for all visual types, so anytime that you need to see more information, that's where you'll look. I can also add other fields to this tree map. So for example, I can choose to drag the units into color saturation, and it will show me slightly different information. So now it's using units to color the tree map. I can also create a line chart, and I'm going to start by adding my date to that. This time I just checked the date option in the field list, and I can see that we automatically added that field to the axis bucket. So you can either choose to drag in a field from the field list and drop it into a specific bucket in the field well, or I can just check the fields I want to see, and we will automatically add it into what we believe is the best bucket for that type of field. So I added date, and it added it to the axis, and then I'm going to check units, and it automatically added that to the values bucket. And now I'm going to drag in category into the legend. And now I have several visuals on my page, and I have all the information I want to show. The next step will be to format these charts. So as you've seen in the visualizations pane, this first tab is where all the fields go in your chart. But we have a second tab here that looks like a little bit of like a paint roller. That is the formatting option in the pane. And when you go to this formatting pane, you'll see for any given chart, all the different options you have to format that chart. And then you can see we have quite a few options. You can do things like go in and edit the title. So I can go in and I can either use the default title as a starting point, or I can just erase the whole thing and type whatever I want. So I can go in and change this to say units by my manufacturers. And I can go in and I can change the font color. So I can make this more of a darker gray. And I can do things like align it to center. I'm going to go over to this pie chart, and I'm going to change the data labels up. By default, the data labels show the category, but I also want it to show the data value, so the number behind the slice. And so I can go in here and change that. I can also increase the size to whatever is a good size for my visual, and I can, again, change the colors up to however I want. I can also, for example, turn on a legend here. In the line chart, I'm going to go and I'm going to make an adjustment to my axis. So right now it shows from 0 to 500,000. I want to go in and I'm going to make the y-axis go to end on 1,000,000. I'm going to go in and I'm going to type in 1,000,000, and now the chart adjusts to show from the default starting point to the end point that I specified. In line charts, I can also add data labels. And I also have this slider here that controls the density of the label. So I can say I want to see more labels or less, and I can control exactly how many I want to show. I can change the display units as well, the color, the number of decimal points, and various other aspects of the data labels. I can also control the colors I want to see. So instead of this teal color, I want it to be this kind of grayish blue color. And I can go in and I can control for each of my values in the chart what colors they show. There's also some other formatting features that are consistent between all the charts. I can, in addition to the title, I can also add borders to charts. I can change the background of the chart. And I can adjust the size to specific sizes as well, just a specific height and width. Using all of these formatting features, you'll be able to make your report look exactly how you want. So if there's a specific style in your company that you're trying to match, you'll be able to do that using this formatting pane. And while this was just an overview, you should definitely go in and explore the formatting pane for all the different chart types and see what kind of options you have. And of course, as you continue through this course, we will show more types of charts and go into more specific details for those charts.